is quite a helpful tool when you're going through those processes. But anyway, this is for the networking part of things. I'm going to go back to you, Nigel, and I'm going to ask you about the Brexit referendum in 2016. How much of a shock was that to the business areas that you have your expertise in? And how do businesses, or did businesses, need to be restructured over the last 5 years in terms of licensing and regulation to meet the EU exit date?
Thank you, Denise. It's a big question. I remember clearly that the Brexit referendum happened on a Thursday. I woke up on a Friday to the referendum outcome. I wasn't shocked. I wasn't shocked to the extent that I think the vote was more or less expected. You could see that the public mood in the United Kingdom was one that did support the exit from the European Union. But in life, even if you expect something, even though you are expecting something, if it's a high impact event, then clearly it does leave you in a state of shock because the consequences were huge. The magnitude of the consequences in being told that all of a sudden your economic model is no longer what you thought it was, and the Gibraltar economic model is clearly built up on the building blocks that I mentioned before, and also the fact that the frontier opened in 1983 in Gibraltar, which clearly provided also a means for people socially and economically to prosper. It was important for the financial services sector as well, because Gibraltar was able to obtain access to the European common market as a result of being in the European Union, but we got this rather late in the day. In other words, Gibraltar joined the European Union on the 1st of January 1973, together with the UK. The UK was the member state responsible for Gibraltar, and Gibraltar only obtained our passporting rights, that European access, in 95-96, to the extent that the then Chancellor of the Exchequer in the United Kingdom, Kenneth Clarke, happened to be the Chancellor of the Exchequer, gave a political commitment to the then Chief Minister, Joe Bossano, today Sir Joe Bossano, and it was as a result of that political commitment that Gibraltar companies were able to come to Gibraltar, to be licensed by the Financial Services Commission, and obtain UK market access. The first thing that we had to do in Gibraltar at the time, and it was of paramount importance, Denise, was to try to secure our UK market access. And I tell you why that was important. That was important because 90% of all financial services activities conducted from Gibraltar were UK facing. In other words, were activities that were conducted from Gibraltar with a view to obtaining market access in the United Kingdom. That was 90% of all business, not 90% of all companies, and that's an important distinction. Because that UK market access was not derived from EU law. In other words, it wasn't as a result of being a member of the EU that we had those rights, because Gibraltar and the UK were the same member state, but it was as a result of the political commitment that was given by the then Chancellor of the Exchequer to the Gibraltar government. It was important to prevail in discussions with the UK in order to ensure a continuation of that market access. And Albert Isola, who's here today, and his government were very quick in initiating that dialogue, that discussion with the UK government, in order to guarantee what I think is the most important part of the economic activity that is done in Gibraltar in the financial services market. Having done that, what we then had to do was consider those parts of the business that was done in Gibraltar that was EU facing. In other words, business activities that relied on EU market access in the traditional sense. And in Gibraltar, there were many companies that did EU business. So I remember very quickly that I had to put together a blueprint in discussion with particularly the insurance sector in Gibraltar, to be able to provide a solution to the activities that were undertaken in Gibraltar. I traveled to Luxembourg to see whether Luxembourg could be a domicile for the clients that were based in Gibraltar. I very quickly discarded Luxembourg for no reason other. It's a great jurisdiction, highly reputable, but the language is not English, and the legal system is clearly civil law and not English law or English common law. This then took me to Malta. I went to Malta. I was introduced to professional advisors in Malta, and I met with the Maltese regulator on a number of occasions. And Malta ticked all the relevant boxes, and it did because Malta is small. It's a comparable jurisdiction to Gibraltar, English speaking as well, other than Maltese. They speak English perfectly. And indeed, their system is also based on English law and indeed English common law. So I thought that Malta was ideal for some of the clients that we had in Gibraltar. Very briefly, let me also say that I looked at La Linea as a potential location for the business that we had in Gibraltar, which, remember, was business that could not continue to be done from Gibraltar post-Brexit date. In other words, this was not business that we were just simply having in Gibraltar. We wanted to put in La Linea for no reason other than neighborly relations. It wasn't that, although that was a good enough reason to be able to have discussion in relation to having the business over there. It was a regulatory imperative for that business to move from Gibraltar, and therefore it occurred to me that in an ideal world, you could move certain regulated entities that relied on EU passporting across the border in La Linea. You just literally had to walk 200 meters over to La Linea to be licensed by the Spanish regulator and to keep the skills and the infrastructure, the professional infrastructure that we had in Gibraltar, to continue to have that infrastructure here rather than moving it to Malta. Unfortunately, I discarded that as a solution for regulatory reasons, but that's not for today. But the point I'm trying to make is that there was an extensive review of what we did in relation to that business. We redomiciled certain financial institutions from Gibraltar to Malta. Redomiciliation legislation is legislation that was introduced in Gibraltar, if I'm not mistaken, in 1996, 1997, that allows companies to redomicile lock, stock and barrel from one jurisdiction to another by being reconstituted as the same legal entity with the same assets and liabilities, but clearly licensed and regulated elsewhere. We also did portfolio transfers for those companies, insurance companies in particular, that had EU customers, that to the extent that those obligations were continuing obligations, and in an insurance context, you have your liabilities to continue to pay claims, and therefore, to that extent, you need to be licensed. To the extent that the companies could not redomicile for whatever reason, we undertook portfolio transfers from Gibraltar to other European domiciles and also to Malta. Interestingly, Denise, when I was there, I realized there was a potential opportunity for Gibraltar as well. And I think my colleague here to the right mentioned that challenges presents opportunities. And indeed, there was, I realized, a huge potential opportunity for Gibraltar. And I'll explain what the opportunity is, but I'll say straight away that I managed to get more business out of Malta to Gibraltar than what I lost from Gibraltar to Malta. Figure that one out. But that's exactly what we were able to do. And the reason for that is simple, and I won't take more time. The reason for that was very simple, and that is that Malta had the same problem as Gibraltar, and in reverse. In other words, because the United Kingdom was exiting the European Union, there were businesses that were based in Malta, licensed in Malta, that had UK market access as a result of being part of the European Union, that come Brexit date, and the transitional arrangements which the UK government were to put in place, they would have to cease doing that business. So logically, because the Gibraltar government was able to secure a continuation of the Gibraltar-UK common market and that UK market access, we were able to redomicile those companies from Malta to Gibraltar. It's one of those ironies in life that you don't expect to be picking up business, but in the end, you do.
So you found an opportunity in the challenge.
Huge opportunity. And in fact, we are redomiciling now the last remaining company in Malta in the insurance sector, or at least the last remaining company that is seeking to redomicile. We are in the process of doing that, and I expect to be able to welcome that company in Gibraltar in 3 months' time.
Thank you.